Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Amar Elm, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Andrew Poles, the founder of Andrew Poles Executive Coaching, a firm empowering founders and CEOs to transform their leadership and their businesses. With over 20 years of coaching, over 10,000 people, and a Gallup Strength Coach certification, Andrew is redefining success for leaders. Andrew, welcome to Founders Future.
It's great to be here, Amar. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. I always like to start from the beginning. So give
Yeah.
us a little bit of a background of what made you get into the executive coaching realm, what made you start your firm, and what problems were you hoping to solve in the marketplace?
I think the origin story of this goes back to the 90s, really, even though I started this company in 2020. But in the 90s, I was completing a PhD program in philosophy at UT, and my intention was to write books and teach and try to make a difference in the world through academia. And while I was in graduate school, unexpectedly, I had a child and with someone who I wasn't married with. And so to have time with my child, I decided to start my first business so I could take her with me to work. So I left academia, I started my first company, and that was very successful for me on a number of fronts, including being able to take my daughter with me to work and spend time with her. But it really took me away from my dream, using my life to make a difference because my whole world became about business and paying
Mm,
child support and just surviving the challenges of being a single father. So in 2000, I took my first coaching program as a participant. I had tried different things in my life that were maybe psychological in nature. I had counseling with my co-parent and I'd done different kinds of philosophical work, but I'd never been coached. And
yeah.
coaching made a huge difference for me. It really altered the course of my life. It reminded me what I wanted to use my life for. And that really initiated my journey to explore coaching. And I started coaching within a couple of years of that, and I've been coaching ever since. But in the first 20 years of my coaching, I did it as a side hustle while I ran other people's businesses. I always had a real acumen for business. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was doing consulting by traveling and in-person turning around failing companies. And I had my second business, which was all in-person training in
Mm,
large corporations. We were working with NASA and Dell and Schwab, and everything shut down. So overnight, I had no income. I had no way to generate any income. And so I thought, well, what can I do in the meantime until we figure out how to get online? And I thought, oh, I could do coaching. I've been coaching for 20 years. I'll just start a coaching practice. It was
yeah.
literally out of necessity to do
Wow.
something during the pandemic that I started this business. And I thought it would be a side hustle, but I just completely fell back in love with coaching one-on-one as opposed to doing group trainings. And so that's how my business got started. And I have been developing it ever since. I now focus on, I think this was the follow-up part of your question. I focus on two different types of business leaders. I work with first-time founders of Silicon Valley style startups who are somewhere between their pre-seed stage and Series A. And then I work with small
Yep.
business owners, and they're usually in service-oriented businesses. And what my practice is about at this point, and it's evolved because the coaching I've done over the last 20 years has covered the whole spectrum of business and performance coaching to life coaching and relationship coaching. And what I've learned over the last, let's say, 22 years now, Amar, is that a business and a founder have these parallel arcs that follow each other. And these are arcs of development. And if either one of those arcs gets
Mm,
stunted or stopped, the other one also stalls. So if the founder stops developing and growing, then their business will get stuck. And the converse is also true. If the business doesn't keep evolving and growing, then the founder will get stuck in their leadership. And so, what I focus on is empowering these business leaders to fulfill on their vision, not just for their company, but for themselves as a human being in their life. So we work on their businesses, we work on their leadership, we work on their mindsets, we work on their skill sets, but we also work on their marriages and their parenting and their health because if any of those things get stuck, the business suffers. So I get in my experience, just the profound honor of being a very intimate part of their journey through life while they're growing a business. and to
Yeah.
empower them in all the different areas where they need to be effective to be successful and to feel fulfilled.
I love that. I'm sure you know the quote, there's no such thing as business problems. There's just personal problems that manifest in your business.
Yeah, I love that quote.
Yeah, I like that you take that holistic approach because it really is everything. How you do one thing is how you do everything, and you're the only person that you're going to take with you everywhere you go. So why
True,
not improve that person?
true.
I am so sorry. My internet kind of lagged out a little bit. You said first time founders, startups, pre-seed, and then what was the second one you mentioned?
Yeah, also business owners who are not in the Silicon Valley style startup, but something that's actually a profit generating business that's somewhere between, let's say, half a million
Mm,
and $10 million of revenue. And
got
usually
it.
those are more lifestyle businesses for people as opposed to the startups, which are going to for that unicorn status kind of market disruption play.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're just two really different parts of the business spectrum.
How do you work with these individuals? Is it like one-on-one? Is it group coaching? What does the fulfillment process look like?
Yeah, I do have both offerings. I have small group coaching, which is typically occupied by my small business owners, but not always. And then I do one-on-one coaching with everyone else. So the one-on-one coaching is a combination of my startup founders and my other kinds of small business owners. Typically, my one-on-one engagements are annual engagements, and most of my clients have been with me for years. As I said,
Okay.
like we walk through life together. And that's what I really enjoy is being a part of their journey. And then my group coaching programs are generally 4-month engagements with more of a curriculum based structure. And then after that, the participants have the option to continue with me and together, where the coaching kind of transitions more to responsive coaching to particular challenges that their companies are facing with a roundtable coaching format. So people are constantly getting lots of different perspectives on how to handle their challenges personally and professionally. Those are my two formats right now.
I love that. And that small group environment is very valuable. I know for me, when I've been in different masterminds and they've had that, I learn more just from listening what people
Yeah.
are asking and what
Yeah.
they're going through in life. Maybe they're at a couple stages ahead of you and you're going to realize, okay, this is something I might run into. How can I navigate the process now to avoid that? So that's huge. And going back to your story, I love that it came out of necessity,
Yeah.
where I just needed to do something during COVID and now you're impacting lives on a very deep level, especially when it's the head of the organization, it trickles down to everybody else. So it's an
So
indirect
true.
impact. Yeah, indirect impact to everybody else in the organization. Shifting a little bit, can you walk us through how do you attract these clients in the first place? What does the lead generation look like to bring them into your ecosystem?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I had this I still have an extensive network from coaching people for 20 plus years in individually in groups and in companies, just tens of thousands of people. So I just started off my business by what I call smiling and dialing,
Yeah.
and just having really honest conversations with people who I knew well, who I'd coached maybe in the past about what I was doing now and whether there's any way I could support them. And that made it pretty easy to start my business. I grew my business from zero to a six-figure business in about 6 weeks just by
Wow.
doing that through my network. So at this point, what I've learned about customer acquisition, the way I like to coach, because it is such an intimate experience, is that to be able to go beyond referrals, you need to really play the long tail game of content leadership. There's just a tremendous amount of trust required to hire someone as a one-on-one executive coach because it's such an intimate personal experience. And there's so much that you're investing in it if you're a startup founder, because startup founders, for example, their whole life is mortgaged on the success of their business, or at least that's how they feel. And a lot of my clients currently come through referrals from existing clients because they're all networked. However, for the last 2 years, I've been diligently working on building a brand in the marketplace around my unique approach to coaching. And so I put out anywhere from 8 to 12 pieces of thought leadership every week.
Amazing.
And I've been doing that for quite some time now. And I don't really ask for anything from
Yeah.
people. I have an email newsletter. I have a LinkedIn newsletter. LinkedIn is my primary channel for putting out content. And so my approach to this is if I really am in it for the long term, if I give lots and lots of value, if I demonstrate to people how I think and how I coach, and they're attracted to that, when they are ready to talk to someone about being their coach, I'll be one of the people they think of. And so
Mhm.
that's a longer term play that I'm engaged in. But for now, most of my clients come through referrals from existing clients.
Yeah. It takes a little bit to put into place, but I think it's a flywheel effect. where
Yeah.
you eventually get to a point where you get so many organic leads that you don't really need to run paid ads or you don't really need to do XYZ unless you want to just scale it up further.
Yes, I
What have
think
you
that's true.
what have you found to be the most effective channels? Is it LinkedIn or are
Well,
there?
for what I do, yeah, it's definitely LinkedIn. I have dabbled with other channels and the people that I work with are there, but it's not where they go to find the thought leadership that I'm offering. So, really, for me, what makes the most sense right now is LinkedIn and YouTube. I
Yeah,
also have a YouTube channel, and I've just recently started putting out videos about 10 to 15 minutes in length on topics that come up over and over again with my clients that they're challenged by and how we solve them.
yeah, I love that. YouTube, yeah, it creates a self-sustaining funnel where the business is essentially self-sustaining where you're constantly being sent out to the right people. Doesn't necessarily need to get thousands or hundreds of thousands of views. So if you get a couple hundred, but exactly the people that you want to work with, it's amazing.
Yeah, so true.
Walk me through the sales process. Once somebody becomes a lead, how do they actually become a client? What are the steps they go through?
So I do a series of calls with people. It's usually two. Sometimes it's one, but it's usually two calls. And I have designed basically a coaching format for those calls to walk them through a thought experiment that helps them connect with what it is that they really would love to accomplish, both in the domain of results in their business, but also in the domain of their leadership and who they're being in life and what the current challenges they have are to accomplishing that. So I have them go through what I call the realistic magic wand thought experiment. And I really like this because the realistic part is that you're not allowed to say anything that you don't know for a fact is possible because you've seen other people do it. So that's the realistic part. But the magic part is it seems impossible for you to do it for
Mm,
whatever reason. It seems out of reach. So that
wow.
puts people in this sweet spot zone of stretching for something that they know is achievable because it's been done, but they just don't think they can. And I
Yeah.
find that level of envisioning one's life is incredibly rich and empowering. And so after they've told me all that, and we've gone through what's in their way of being able to accomplish that, at least from what they can see, I look to see if the way I coach would be a good match for helping them get there. And if it is, I tell them I think I can help them get there. And if it's not, I tell them I don't think I'm the right person for you. And I try to
Wow.
connect them to the person who is. And I learned that lesson the hard way, Amar. I tried to be everything to everyone in the beginning.
Yeah.
And do you know that book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, where he identifies there are these four quadrants where you have a zone of incompetence, a zone of competence, a zone of excellence, and a zone of genius. And he
Mm,
talks about that the way people make big leaps in life is by focusing as much of your time and attention as you can on your zone of genius. And that's those areas where your competencies are uniquely effective. They're
yeah.
so natural for you. They're like breathing, and you get the most joy out of them. And then you have, as you go around that quadrant, your zone of excellence, you're really good at those things, but so are a lot of people. And maybe they're fun for you, but they don't give you that deep sense of fulfillment and on. I could lean into my zones of excellence and even my zones of competence. And what I found was that when it wasn't the right fit, I didn't enjoy it. They didn't get as much value out of it. So I just stopped doing it. If it isn't like a hand in a glove, I pass and I try to give them to someone whose zone of genius lines up with what they need. But if I think it's a good fit, then I'll walk them through my program and the time investment, the cost investment, and
Yeah.
then they make their choice. And I would say, I don't know, man, it seems like 70, 80% of people I speak with at that point decide to engage me. I think my process is very transparent. It provides a lot of value for people, whether they hire me or not, which is a commitment that I have and everything that I do to provide value. So I think that really works. So for me, the challenge isn't so much the sales process as just this long tail on lead generation through
Mm.
starting from zero with someone who's just encountering me online.
Yeah, that I love the way that you laid that out. It seems like you've put a lot of meticulous thought into it, especially the aspect of consistently providing value. So even if they come on the call, whether they engage with you or not, they're still getting value from doing those exercises because it is very powerful. Most people don't ask themselves those questions. One of my favorite lines is Tony Robbins, the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're taking them through. So
Yeah.
it's a service, really. What's your vision over the next, let's say, 12 months?
For my business, you mean?
for your business. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple things I'm adding in. So I'm going to be publishing a book this year that I've been working on for the last year and a half. And I think that's going to appeal to a different swath of people than who I'm currently serving. And if the book is well received, which I hope it will be, that may open up a new group coaching program. And the
Yeah.
book it's a memoir. So we're going to take a brief little left turn here, but I put myself through the same paces I put my clients through. I take myself through that magic wand experiment. And one of the years I went through that, I decided that one of the things I saw a lot of people doing that I didn't think I could do was a 100-mile ultra marathon mountain biking race up in the Colorado Rockies. My wife challenged me to do it. And I was like, I can't, I told my wife, I can't do that. I'm like, that's just not capable of something like that. And she's like, what are you talking about? She goes, you could say, if you set your mind to that, you could totally do that. And I really didn't think I could. And I had already created for that year this theme of
Yeah.
accomplishing what seemed impossible. And at her suggestion, I took it on. It took me a year and a half to accomplish it. The first time I tried, I failed. The second time I tried, I accomplished it. And it drove up every limiting belief I had about myself to do it. And so it was an incredible journey. And I wrote, at the prompting of friends who were part of the whole ride, I wrote a book about it. And it's really a book about dream fulfillment and what it takes, what you have to go through to
Mm,
accomplish something that's deeply meaningful to you and seemingly impossible. And I think that's going to appeal to people outside of just the business world. So if that happens, that may be an addition in the next 12 months. But that's a big part of the next year. And then I'm also starting to do retreats for my existing clients. So I'm going to have my first retreat this year. And I cut my teeth in coaching on leading group programs. Amar, I used to lead programs that were 39 hours long over the course of a weekend, like 150 people. And so I love that group facilitation component. So I'm adding that in. So those are two new ads. Aside from that, I have some companies I'm working with who are growing super, super fast, who are just in this maelstrom of what's going on right now in tech and software. And so I'm going to continue to support them as I probably add in maybe two or three new one-on-one coaching clients and then add another group. So in the
awesome.
next year, that's all of what's going on. That feels like about as much as I can keep my arms around effectively.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it sounds like you've clearly laid it out. The book sounds very powerful. I wrote down what you said because it stuck out to me. Deeply meaningful and seemingly impossible.
Yeah.
That's super, super powerful. And yeah, you just have my mind racing right now of different things in my life that I want to, hey, what is deeply meaningful but seemingly impossible? But I know that if I set my mind to it, what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think people listening to that should also be self-reflective of that. What is that in your life? So I appreciate you for sharing that. Having that vision in mind, what do you feel like are going to be the roadblocks or challenges to really scaling your coaching company?
To scaling my coaching company. Yeah, I think if scaling looks something like somewhere close to a decimal point factor or something like that of clientele or what have you, I don't know what you mean by scaling, but I think the biggest challenge for me there, aside from acquiring new leads at that pace, would be scaling myself
Mm,
because I'm a solopreneur. I'm a
yeah,
founder. Just it's just me delivering this coaching, and I have people who work for me doing other parts of the business, but they don't
yeah.
coach for me. So I think the challenge with my business is I do so much one-on-one coaching. That's not a scalable model. And if I really wanted to scale, I would have to confront changing my business model fundamentally. And that's still something that I'm trying honestly to work through for myself. And
Mm,
I want to say this about that because it's relevant to what we were talking about, that deeply meaningful and seemingly impossible accomplishments. I learned after doubling my business 3 years in a row that they say that there's this upside down U-shaped curve that measures happiness on the vertical axis against money on the horizontal axis. And so there comes this point where you've maximized your happiness as a function of how much money you're making. And if you go beyond that, it has a diminishing return on your happiness. And at this point, I've experienced that firsthand, that more business and more money isn't making me any happier. And so I've had to pull back from this picture of success, what I always thought success was, as measured in clients and money and everything, and ask myself the question, what's fulfilling? What is success on the graph of fulfillment? And when I look at that, I don't have this profound desire to scale. I want to scale my impact, but I don't know if I want to scale my business. And if I
Yeah.
publish some books that are really widely adopted, I can scale my impact. If I have content on YouTube that is watched by more and more people, I can scale my impact. My business will always be growing, but I don't know if I want to scale it. I don't know if I want to become someone who's got coaches that I train and I have to manage all those coaches. I've done all that stuff, and I just don't know if that's going to make me any happier. So
Mm,
I don't know that I want to scale my business. I definitely want to continue to
yeah.
grow it, but I want to scale my impact.
I love that. I love that you were self-reflective enough to even come to that realization because a lot of people don't. They're just like, hey, revenue, profit, clients, and it's just more. I'm curious, do you, I guess maybe you answered this, but do you eventually see a business where you have other coaches working alongside you and then you have somebody handling sales? Because in a sense, that is also scaling your impact because you're able to bring in more people and help them at a higher level. Do you foresee that at all or not so much?
Right now, my answer would be maybe.
Mm,
I definitely think about it from time to time. And I have trained lots of coaches in my career, hundreds. So I'm familiar with what that's, and it is also very fulfilling. But I just don't know yet, Amar, to be
yeah.
honest, if that's something I want for this business. And if it becomes something I want, I'll definitely pursue it. But right now, it's still in the maybe category.
Yeah, fair enough.
I know in terms of the sales, I would be way more interested in bringing on resources to help me generate leads than sales because I love selling. I always
Yeah.
have. And because I view sales as a service, for me, it's no different than coaching. I also love discovering who people are. It just is like even my own wife, who I've known now I've been with her for 25 years. Every
That's
day,
amazing.
I
That's
every day I try to discover her again.
yeah.
I ask her questions and I listen to what can I discover about what her experience of life is like that I've never seen before. So I love doing the selling. Maybe at some point I'll change my mind about that, but right now that's where I'm at.
I love that. 25 years, that's a feat. That's
Yeah.
write a book on that. That's it right there. I guess before I let you go, what's one tip that you would give to new entrepreneurs that are just starting out in 2025 and really looking to make a name for themselves and build their company from the start?
Okay. If it's one thing, if I can only have one thing, I think that it would be this. There is a characteristic I see in all the great founders who've had incredible success and been market disruptors and have really moved the market or moved the world. And it's that they're obsessed. They're just truly obsessed with the mission and the idea behind their company.
Mm,
And they're so obsessed about it that they can't even stop thinking about it. So there's every spare moment, they're reading something, they're listening to a podcast, they're studying whatever. And it's not because they're driven just by success, and they might be, but it's also more that they're driven by something that they find intrinsically interesting and intrinsically valuable to pursue. I think if
mm,
you're going to spend the time and energy it takes to build a successful business from scratch, which is an immense amount of time and energy, you want to be pursuing something that you can be obsessed about in a way that gives you joy and fulfillment. Because otherwise, in my personal opinion, it's not worth it. It's not worth all of the time you're going to put into something that you don't enjoy in the hopes that the outcome at the end of it all sets you up or gives you some notch in your belt. I would call that a waste of life, truly a waste of your life, because tomorrow is not promised. So if
mm.
you're not living your life today in a way that you can get to the end of the day and say, I fully lived, I'm really happy with what I did, you're wasting it. And so my thing would be whatever you choose for your business, have it be something that you find intrinsically meaningful and that you truly enjoy obsessing about, being great at. And if you do that, no matter what the outcome is, successful or not successful, it will have been time well spent and it will, if not successful, lead you to the next thing, you know,
Yeah,
and that next thing will be even greater. So that would be my one tip.
that is so powerful. You made me think of, have you ever listened to a tape by Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret?
No, no.
The very interesting tape. It was recorded in the 50s. So he was around for the Napoleon Hill era, Bob Proctor. He was actually Bob Proctor's mentor. And it's a 30-minute tape. It's very easy to find on YouTube. It's called The Strangest Secret. And he says success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal.
Beautiful.
It's amazing. So if you have a goal and you intentionally, consciously chose that goal, and you're working towards that goal, you're a success. Whether you reach it or whether you don't, you're already successful.
I love that.
I
I love
love that
that.
so much. And it's a beautiful frame to have in life. And he's the teacher that wants to be a teacher. She's a success.
Yeah.
The guy who owns the restaurant across the street and he loves cooking the food and pouring his love into it and serving it to the people, seeing the smiles on their face, he's a success.
Yeah.
And it's not the materialistic elements which we're so encouraged by society to put on a pedestal. It's the deeper stuff, the stuff that's truly meaningful, that brings you joy and fulfillment. I really enjoyed this conversation, Andrew. Thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure. You're really great at your job, by the way. It's really easy to talk with you. I appreciate you having me on as a guest.
Thank you. What are the best ways for people to get in contact with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. So for people who are active on that channel, my LinkedIn profile is just my name, Andrew Poles, or people can get to me through my website, www.andrewpoles.com.
Awesome. That wraps up another inspiring of Founders Future. Again, I want to thank you, Andrew, for sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us today. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales and marketing efforts through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep on climbing.